You blocked me, little baby. So I called your brother. He and I had a talk. I told him the same thing I'm telling you right now. I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition. Short Stories, Synchronicity. Part 5. When we left off, Donovan and Maribel were leaving the courthouse. Donovan had won. God had shown that he is a man of his word. His grace and his mercy abound. Donovan had seen in real time that obedience is better than sacrifice. He'd been one decision away from having to share custody of his daughter with her grandfather. That was the decision that the judge was going to make. Had Donovan not decided to follow the unction of the Holy Spirit and offer Clarence that last-minute Hail Mary. Clarence, in his selfishness, had turned Donovan's offer down. And as Donovan and Maribel left the courthouse hand in hand, Clarence had hobbled to catch up with them. When he did, he said, "Hey, Donovan, man, congratulations. So when can I move into the guest house?" Donovan looked at Maribel. Maribel looked at Clarence. And Maribel said, "My husband made that offer in good faith, and I'm withdrawing it. We'll let you know when you can come visit, though." Clarence said, "Come on, you gotta understand. I'm worried about her safety." Donovan said, "And you gotta understand that there isn't a world where I wouldn't fight, kill, or die for my daughter. I get that you want to make up for not being there for yours." Clarence said, "Come on now. That's not fair. You know that I didn't even know I had a daughter." Donovan said, "That's not a dig, man. We talking facts, right? The facts are that you feel bad. You feel guilty about not being there for your daughter, about not being able to save her from herself. You need her death to be my fault. I had a hard time not blaming myself, so I get it. Life is too short for grudges. I've held a few in my day, and that ain't always turned out so good. Just give us a couple of weeks. I made you that offer because God put it on my heart. Let him do his work on your heart and mine, and I'll call you. Right now, I have other things I need to attend to. I need to take my son Justice to see his mother." Clarence said, "See, this is why I was fighting you for custody. Who the hell takes their infant son to a crazy house to see a crazy woman, mother or not?" Donovan said, "Watch your mouth, old man. That woman gave me one of my greatest blessings. You will not disrespect her." Clarence said, "But she killed a nurse and tried to kidnap your son from the hospital nursery. And now she's locked away in a damn asylum." Donovan said, "And she's getting the help that she needs." Clarence said, "So you gonna take your baby to an asylum waiting room? That's where he gonna visit his mother for the rest of her life?" Donovan said, "Hell no. Fighting you hasn't been the only thing I've been doing over the last few months. I raised several $1,000,000, donated my talents and the time and efforts of my staff to make it possible for patients at the facility to be able to visit with small children in cottages on the property that feel more like home than a jail psychiatric facility. It's secure, it's safe, and it's intentionally comfortable so that the children can still have the benefit of receiving the love and attention of their parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, siblings, and so that those incarcerated patients can still be connected to the children they love and have an incentive to get better. Attitudes like yours are the reason why Portia's in the position she's in now, because nobody prioritized her remaining in contact and connected to her own mother." Maribel said, "And we won't let what happened to Portia and her mother happen to Justice or to Portia." And then the two walked off. In the car, Donovan said, "I have no idea how I would have gotten through these last few months without you. I don't want to do life without you. God did his biggest one when he made you, and he did the best thing he could have ever done for me when he gave you to me." Meanwhile, in Puerto Rico, Q, Big Wood, Wise, and LJ are taking a walk around the Lopez estate. Q and LJ are taking the lead, and Wood and Wise are pulling up the rear. The lieutenants and generals weren't the only ones surprised to see Big Wood alive in the flesh the night before. Wise had no idea that Big Wood was still alive. And as soon as all of the announcements were over, he headed back to the estate because he was in his feelings. He had a rapport with Q and LJ, but in his mind, he and Wood were friends. Friends don't do that to friends. Not only had he mourned that man, but he felt partially responsible for Big Wood's death. It was his sister, after all, who got all mixed up with the International Trafficking Organization in the first place. Wise knew nothing about what Big Wood did when he was 8 years old, or the fact that the vendetta between the International Trafficking Organization and the notorious Five Families had its roots in Big Wood and his sister's childhood abuse. Back at the estate, it was Mighty Saul who convinced Wise that he needed to tell Wood how he felt, and he needed to hear Wood out. So after the huge breakfast, LJ needed to meet Stacks at the Lopez airstrip. The two men had to get to Dallas for a rather important happening that afternoon. They both would be back later on that evening. So Wood, Q, and Wise decided to walk with LJ. Wise shared his heart with Big Wood, and Wood explained to Wise why his death needed to look real, and that for a long time nobody knew he was alive, except for Q, his mother, and Mom Brenda. The Queen Mother, Idra, and Manny had figured it out all by themselves. They told Alejandro so that he wouldn't be the only head of the Five Families who didn't know. Samuel found out by mistake, and the only reason why he was coming out now was because it was safe for the people that he loved. Then Big Wood told Wise everything that he knew about what had been going on in Wise and Selima's life, about their baby, Alana, and how good of a job Wise had done at keeping Slim from going off the deep end. And Wise's hurt feelings were satiated. He said, man, I wanted to share this whole experience with you. Be there to see you raising your son and have you there to see me raising my daughter. Wood used the tablet to say, well, I'm here now, bro. But so you know, I won't be stateside for long. After the round table, I'm off the grid. Me and my son gonna be tucked away. So Tru could do her thing and I could help bro out. But you know where I am, and you and Alana can come through while Selima does her thing. Why I said, say less, I'm there. At the same time, Q and LJ were talking. And LJ said, so bro, you gonna tell me about this lip? Q said, it's light work. Angela's been having a hard time being kept in the dark. Queen Mother told me that she was gonna let Angela know that she knows where Michael and Tamara are, and so do I. So I flew out and had a conversation with that man. I tried to convince him to have a conversation with his mother, to tell her where he is and what he's doing. He was adamant that he doesn't want her to know. LJ said, so why you don't just tell her, bro? Q said, cause I'm trying to respect his wishes, but that little nigga's starting to smell his damn self. LJ said, he punched you in the mouth. Q said, nah, I challenged the little nigga to a boxing match and put a little wager on it. I told him if he thought he was man enough to boss up to me, then he could get in the ring. If he could take me, then we would play it his way. The little nigga really thought he could take his old man. LJ just fell out laughing. Q continued saying, I tried to tell the nigga that there's a parenthood rule that says I will always be able to beat him in any matchup, on the court, in the ring, on the poker table, anywhere. I let him get one off, and then I demolished his little end. So, after the round table, I'm gonna fly Angela out. We're well overdue for a little R&R anyway. And then I'm gonna surprise her with a visit with our son. But first, I need her to remember that this life don't come before our life. Ain't nothing have us beefing. Not work, not these kids, not our business, not our families, nothing comes before us. It's me and her against the world. And can't nothing change that. And understand she's fine, and understand she's mine. She understands the grind. A few hours later, back in Dallas, Texas, at Angela and Stephanie's estate, huge banquet-style lunch was being prepared. The ladies were dressed to the nines. And before lunch was served, the Queen Mother got up on the podium and said, one of the mistakes that we make as mothers is a lot of times we make motherhood look easy to our children. We hide our struggles, our pain. We cry in silence. We get up, we get our children ready, we get them out the door, we rush off to jobs or homemaking. Those children come home and they have dinner on the table. We help with homework and get them in baths, read them bedtime stories, put them in bed, go in our rooms and cry our eyes out. Fight with our husbands, baby fathers, deal with illnesses nobody knows about, rob Peter to pay Paul, wring our hands about how the bill's gonna get paid. Selima said, don't nobody do that in this room. All the women chuckled and the Queen Mother said, you know what I mean. Just about every woman in this room has done some variation of that. If you haven't, your mother did. Yeah, we got money now, but we didn't always. And not every woman in this room grew up with a parent who was in the life. Not every woman in this room grew up in a two-parent household. Some of you grew up without a father. Some without a mother. Some of you had parents who were there, but they weren't. Some of you are brand new mothers or mothers for the very first time. Some of you have older children and brand new babies. And those older children got a whole different mother than those new babies are going to get. Because that's just how the cookie crumbles. So before we have lunch, I've asked a mother, a grandmother, to come up here and share her story. Because I know that most of you haven't heard it. And I believe that it will help you all to see yourselves, your lives, your roles as mothers in a whole new light. I also believe that it will help you to be supportive to the people who are going to need your support the most after this roundtable. Joyce, come on up here. And Regina was shocked. She had no idea her mother was about to speak at the women's luncheon. Mom Joyce got up on the podium and she said, I knew I was speaking today, but I didn't know that this was your idea, Bella. Thank you. The two women hugged and the Queen Mother sat down. Then Mom Joyce said, I was a child when I got pregnant with my only daughter, Regina. A child who thought she was grown and in love with a grown man. By now, most of you know that that grown man was the head of an international trafficking organization, and I was actually one of his victims. I was neither his first nor his last. Recently, as most of you already know, I was foolish enough to believe that I could stop that man from hurting my daughter by agreeing to go with him and be his collateral. In the end, he still ended up snatching my daughter. And half the world had to come and save us. But apparently that's a story for this roundtable meeting, and everybody will know all about that then. But I'm here to tell you about what it was like to be a single teenage mother, raising a headstrong, know-it-all daughter. And everybody in the room laughed. Mom Joy said, it was not easy. I ran away from home, from California to North Carolina. The only jobs that I could get was cleaning hotel rooms. I didn't have a high school diploma. If it wasn't for the Salvation Center in the city in North Carolina that I'd run to, and the senior pastor there, Pastor Robbins, I wouldn't have been able to finish high school. He connected me with two other women. And because of those two women, I was able to go on to college. They helped me raise my daughter, and they became my two closest friends. Angela's mother and LJ's mother became my village. They were the reason many nights that I had food on my table. Because there were nights where I only had enough to feed my daughter, and I had to go hungry. They were the reason why my daughter wasn't home alone. Nights when I had to work overnight because I had classes during the daytime. Without them, I wouldn't have ever graduated from nursing school. Going on to become an LPN and been able to work the doubles to be able to afford to send Regina to that private school. I needed that village, and so did she. It certainly helped that Angela and LJ were good friends to Regina, and they didn't hold it against her that she was a damn fool. Again, everybody in the room laughed. Mom Joy said, I'm telling you all of this because you ladies need to understand that whether you have husbands or not, jobs or not, money or not, you need each other. Women need other women, and your children need to know the sacrifices that it takes to be the kind of mothers that they need. You have no idea the pitfalls that your children can avoid if you're just honest with them about who you are, where you are, and how you got there. Because they're looking and they're telling themselves their own stories. And more often than not, the stories that they're telling themselves are just not true. And they're not just telling themselves stories about who you are. They're telling themselves stories about who they are, about what your absence when you're working means about their value. When they get older, they tell themselves stories about how strong you were and how weak they are. Because they didn't see you crying, they think you never did. Because the lights were never turned off, they have no idea how close they were to being in the dark. Because their stomachs were never empty, they have no idea how many nights you went to bed with yours empty. That's not about putting the burden on them, putting grown folks' problems on them. That's about giving children what they can handle when they can handle it so that they have a realistic idea of what adulthood is really like. What's the worst thing that you ever told yourself about adulthood? Regina said, I can't wait to grow up so I can move out and get my own place. Then Anya signed, I can't wait to grow up and get married. And all of the women guffawed. Mom Joy said, parenthood isn't easy, no matter how you do it or who you do it with. It's okay to admit that. But you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to put on a good front. And you don't have to pretend to be a superhero. Your children are also going to disappoint you. They are going to make decisions that you are not going to agree with. And that is going to hurt you like hell. You don't have to pretend like it doesn't. Let that pain teach you the lessons that it's intended to. Let it grow you. Let it make you better. Let it learn you something. Because, baby, that motherhood pain has taught me. When Mom Joyce was done, she received a standing ovation. There were very few dry eyes in the room. And when the Queen Mother returned to the podium, she called Mom Brenda up to bless the meal. And then she said, "My bad. I knew I was forgetting something. Rennie, you won't be having lunch with us. You have other plans." And then Stacks, dressed in a tux, walked in the door. Rennie said, "Oh, brother, what the hell he doing here?" Tru and Stephanie looked at Rennie confused because they had no idea that there was trouble in paradise. Rennie said he could go back to Puerto Rico or wherever the hell he been at. The Queen Mother said, "Get up out of your seat and go out of the door, Renia." Rennie threw her napkin on the table, stood up and said, "Fine." Then she stormed out of the door, past Stacks. Part of the reason why the Queen Mother and Angela had arranged for Rennie to do her externship at Vibrantly You was because of the mayhem that she'd caused in Puerto Rico at Bellamy's. Manny hadn't tripped, but he wanted her behind off of his island. Stacks had work to do, and he had told Rennie that she could be a handful, but she could not be a problem. So for all the months that Rennie had been in Denton, she had not seen Stacks. The situation with the International Trafficking Organization had kept him hella busy. Plus, he'd been working overtime, trying to keep Tru out of the field. She'd been chopping at the bits to get back to work, and Big Wood wasn't having it. It took months for Big Wood and Tru to get back right, because it took months for Big Wood to get his head and his heart back right. And as much as Stacks was feeling Rennie and really did want to be with her, stabilizing the Lopez organization, helping Stephanie secure her spot as the next head of that organization, clearing the way for Tru to become her right hand, and retaining his position as her general had to be his number one priority. And the situation with Layla had clouded Rennie's judgment. The fact that she'd beaten Layla's whole and entire behind, and Layla had gotten demoted, hadn't been enough for Rennie to be convinced that Stacks was all in and he didn't have nobody else. Rennie wanted more FaceTime, and Stacks couldn't give her that. Rennie wanted explanations, and Stacks couldn't give her that either. Rennie hadn't turned into a bugaboo. She wasn't insecure. She was just into matching energy. So if Stacks didn't call, she didn't call either. If Stacks didn't volunteer an explanation, she made up her own damn story. And if he wasn't on it when she was on it, then she was off it when he was. So when they got outside, Stacks said, "Stop acting salty, little baby. I came all this way to see you. That's how you gonna treat a nigga?" Rennie said, "Like I said, you could have stayed in Puerto Rico or wherever you were." Stacks said, "I got some downtime. I wanted to spend it with you." Rennie said, "You should have spent it with whomever your other options are, because I'm not one of them." Stacks said, "I ain't got no options. You the priority." Rennie said, "I'm not interested in being your main squeeze who you squeeze in. I'm a crash out. We've already established that. You don't like me crashing out, so you froze me out. You can't show up when you're ready and try to thaw me out." Stacks said, "I was working. My safety, the safety of the men and women who I'm responsible for, requires me to be focused. You know this, Rennie. You not new to this." Rennie said, "Yes, I am. I dibble and dabble. This is not my life. You've been working since I met you. But when I was at MIT, you had time to FaceTime me every day. You pulled up on me. You flew me to where you were. But for months, I ain't heard from you. One thing I know how to do now is take a hint. The days of me chasing a nigga and telling myself that a nigga into me that ain't into me are over." Stacks said, "What I gotta do for you to know that I'm into you? You need a grand gesture or something? I'm a private man. You know that. I don't like a whole bunch of people all up in my mix. I don't like embarrassing-ish like that mess you pulled at Bellamy's. I don't like all my business on Front Street." Rennie said, "And I'm not gonna be your dirty little secret. I need a man that's loud and proud to say I'm his. I need for a man to want everybody in the world to know that if I'm rocking, he rolling. That we down like 4 flats. I almost went to jail behind another woman's husband. And I ended up in a psych ward behind another woman's husband. I cannot do another nigga who ain't." And before Rennie could finish, Stacks had snatched Rennie's little behind up and tongued her down right there in the front yard of Angela and Stephanie's estate. When Rennie finally caught her breath, she heard it. All of the women had come out of the house, and they were cheering and clapping. She turned around to look at them, and there was LJ, her big sister Lauren, all of her nieces and nephews, Lauren's husband. She was confused. She turned back around, and Stax was on one knee, holding one of the biggest diamonds she'd ever seen in her life. She said, "What the hell you doing?" Stax said, "I did call you. You blocked me, little baby. So I called your brother. He and I had a talk. I told him the same thing I'm telling you right now. I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. It's going to be times in that life where I'm going to be offline. I'm not going to be able to call. I'm not going to be able to pull up. It ain't nobody else. It can't be nobody else. Ain't nobody else got nothing on you. Don't nobody else drive me crazy like you do. Don't nobody else put it down like you do. Don't nobody hold it down like you do. I ain't here because I gotta be. I'm here because I want to be. Marry me, little baby."
Chicks coming after me, here cause I wanna be, not cause I have to.
Later that night, the women partied like it was 1999 in Dallas, and the fellas partied in Puerto Rico. LJ and Big Wood were at the bar, sipping a little scotch, when a woman he didn't know pushed up. She said, "How you doing? My name is Layla. Your name is LJ, right?" LJ made eye contact with Layla and immediately realized that she was the woman who his little sister had put them paws on. So he knew that if she knew his name, she also knew that Rennie was his baby sister. He said, "That's right." Layla said, "You smell good. What you wearing?" LJ said, "Character and self-respect." Layla said, "Who makes that?" LJ said, "God," and turned back around. Big Wood guffawed. Layla said, "Well, my bad. I thought you was single." LJ said, "Single, ain't desperate. Have a good one, though." When Layla walked away, Big Wood said, "How you adjusting?" LJ said, "Just fine. But I ain't going back to the man I used to be." Then the music switched from the DJ to the band. And LJ turned around when he heard Lyric on the mic. For almost a full set, LJ sat staring at Lyric in apt attention. When the band broke, Big Wood asked, "That's the shorty that you helped out last night?" LJ said, "Yeah, that's her." When Big Wood said that Lyric had LJ's undivided attention, LJ said, "I love a woman who could sing, and she nice to look at, but I ain't really into women who need the attention of others to feel valuable, you know?" When Big Wood asked if LJ was ready to get back out there, LJ said, "I don't know. What I do know is when I am ready to get back out there, these bras gonna have to submit a RFP for goods and services, because I ain't gonna be just giving it out." And Big Wood fell out laughing. LJ sipped his scotch and said, "Bro, I'm serious. Hell, God want me to take any of these women serious, he gonna have to tap me on the shoulder and say, 'That's you, fam.'" And almost as soon as LJ said the word fam, he literally felt a tap on his shoulder. He damn near had a heart attack. He spent around like, and there was Lyric. She said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. I just wanted to thank you for your help last night. When I asked my manager to thank Javier for me for getting my radiator replaced, he told me that Javier said you paid for it. Bellamy's pays well and the customers tip well, but I don't have enough money right now to be able to repay you. I truly appreciate your generosity. And if you could give me a couple of weeks..." LJ said, "You good, shawty." Lyric said, "Now, I'm all for the kindness of strangers, but I know how much it costs to replace a radiator. That was not cheap. There's got to be some way that I can repay you." "Well, wait, I don't mean it like that." LJ chuckled and said, "I'm not going to accept your money or anything else as repayment, shawty. You're good." Lyric said, "There's got to be something." And then Big Wood cut in and said, "Sing him a song." And Lyric said, "I can do that." When she walked away, LJ and Big Wood made eye contact. And LJ said, "Chill, bro." When it was time for the band's next set, Lyric grabbed the mic, and LJ realized that Lyric had seen him staring at her the very first time he'd heard her sing. Embarrassed, he looked at Wood and said, "I'm out, bro." Reached in his pocket, threw money on the bar, stood up, and walked out of Bellamy's. Big Wood was confused as hell. He didn't know what the hell was going on. Lyric watched as LJ walked out, and she just kept singing. When LJ reached the back door of the club, Javier was hot on his trail. In the parking lot, Javier said, "¿Qué pasó?" LJ said, "Yeah, I'm not feeling the move." Javier said, "I saw you talking to Lyric. Did something happen? Did she say something?" LJ asked, "Why you tell her I paid to fix her car, man?" Javier said, "'Cause you did. I didn't realize it was a secret." LJ said, "And you're not trying to play a damn matchmaker." Javier said, "No. Why are you so angry?" LJ said, "Look, man, I ain't get divorced so I can clap new cheeks. I got baggage. I got kids to raise, a business to run. I gotta watch Angela 6. I need my mind clear, and I need to be focused. I can't get caught up with some singing chick whose identity needs cosigners." Javier nodded and said, "Well, what kind of woman do you need?" LJ said, "I need a woman like I need a hole in my damn head." Javier said, "My bad. If you needed a woman, what kind of woman would you need?" LJ said, "If I needed a woman, I'd need one who chooses oil over followers on IG." Javier said, "Well, usually when a man isn't interested in a woman, he doesn't go out of his way to find a woman's IG." And LJ averted his eyes when he realized his slip. Javier said, "I'm not trying to play matchmaker. You're conflicted right now, and I get it. Chicks like Layla, you steer clear of. Women like Lyric, you don't pass up. I've known her since she was a kid. She hasn't had it easy. You've heard her sing. She has a voice that rivals the greats, Whitney, Mariah. But there's a reason why she's here at Bellamy's and not on the world's biggest stages. Just like you, she survived some things and she has a story to tell. If you look beyond those very old IG posts and the number of followers she has, really see what's there and what's not, maybe you too will be able to share your stories. I don't know everything that happened in your marriage, but I know marriage. I also know a little about starting over. Some women fit your season. The right one helps you confront it. There are women who would love to come in and fit right into the life you've already built. They're more than willing to accept you just as you are. But when the right woman shows up, neither you nor your life can remain the same, because she's not a part of where you've been. She's aligned with where you're going. When LJ didn't respond, Javier turned around and headed back inside Bellamy's. LJ stood there for a moment, and then he headed to his vehicle. Hours later, LJ couldn't sleep. He was tossing and turning, and he just couldn't stop thinking about Lyric or her voice. And before he knew it, he found himself back on Lyric's IG page. As he scrolled, he realized that Lyric hadn't posted anything on that page in multiple years. She had hundreds of thousands of followers, and the only thing she posted was stories. When he clicked on them, he realized that she wasn't showing her face. Her background was always blurred. The only thing she was giving those followers was her voice. Then he saw that her most recent story had been uploaded 30 minutes after the club closed. When he clicked on it, he heard her say, "I met this guy and he did me a kindness. He asked me to repay him with a song, and I thought it was a good idea to sing the song that he heard me sing the first time I saw him. I guess I chose wrong. I should have sung the song that I stayed up writing after I met him. I've had it stuck in my head since then. And since I'll probably never get another opportunity, I figured I'd just go ahead and get it out of my head now. This one is for the guy whose mother raised a gentleman."
It was a crowded room, noise everywhere, but somehow time slowed down when you were there. I swear the lights hit different when you smiled, and I ain't believed in fate until that night. I didn't know your name, but I knew your soul, like I'd met you in a past life long ago. You ain't even say a word, but I felt it.